Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Lunch with Linda. It is May 15th, 2023, and you are now inside Northampton Wolves, which you have a pretty good view of behind me. I'm so happy to be here today on such a gorgeous week after such a beautiful weekend. I hope you all really enjoyed yourself as well. And I hope those of you who celebrated Mother's Day did so in the best way possible, that you were treated wonderfully. I got a gorgeous bouquet of flowers from my California family, and my daughter brought a ton of flowers to the house yesterday. So we were busy doing a lot of planting and gardening, which I am the first to admit is not my favorite thing to do. I love the look, I love the results, but I don't really like getting dirty, especially grit under my fingernails. I'd rather be knitting. But we planned the day out so that I was able to plant and still have some time in the afternoon to sit and knit. Hi, Catherine. Hi, Barb. Hi, Bonnie. Hi, Diane Decker. And everybody else that I just missed. Eileen and Penny. Thank you all for being here today. Let me get that going again. All right, yeah, Kate's here with me today. And we just had a wonderful couple of hours with one of my favorite yarn reps. Jennifer Phillips from Plymouth Yarn was here showing me all of the wonderful goodies they have lined up for this fall. And in fact, we don't even have to wait till fall to get some of them. So when we have a little bit clearer idea of when things are arriving, I will be able to show them to you. But I quickly wanted to tell you one thing, because a few years ago, I designed a shawl for Plymouth Yarn done in their cotton, their multicolor self-striping cotton called Pendenza. Well, Pendenza has been around for a while and it is now on its way out. So that yarn will no longer be available. But they loved the pattern so much, and it was a very popular pattern, that they actually reknit it, and this is it, in the Matita cotton. And this is this the cotton and hemp?
Yes.
This is the cotton and hemp one from them this year. It is a self-striping yarn. I did that top in crochet out of 3 skeins of this yarn, and they reknit the Pendenza shawl, which I'm going to show you the picture of the pattern. Thank you. I printed the pattern out. This pattern is still available on Ravelry, and of course we still have it here because it is my design. Let me pull in even closer so you can see. And what's so fun about this shawl is that it is different stitch patterns, and none of them are all that difficult. This section right here is a little bit of a sand stitch, which is a knit one, purl one on one side and all purl on the other. There's stocking net stitch, there's ribbing, there is one of my favorite basket weave stitches right there. And basically they just went through 2 or 3 skeins. It's a good size. Originally, it was 2 skeins of Pendenza, and that was about 250 yards per skein, and the Matita also has that kind of yardage. And what I love about this is the hemp really gives this yarn a softness that the Pendenza, being a mercerized cotton, didn't quite have. So it has a slightly different feel, but it is an absolutely gorgeous summer shawl. Yeah, look at that. Really, really nice. So again, this is just 2 skeins of this yarn. We have this color in stock, and I just grabbed 3 of the other colors. So look at that one. Wouldn't it? That looks like a garden, doesn't it?
Yeah, that bright.
That is just a gorgeous summer color. And if you want something a little softer, there's this one that's pastels with that lavender into a very soft turquoise into this one would look great with this top.
It does look really good. Yeah, that sort of like peachy.
Oh man.
Floral.
And then this one also is a little bit brighter with that bright orange. So if you're really into some very bright color, Those are, yeah, Bonnie, this is a very drapey fabric. And I think the drape is different than the pendenza was as well. It's just really soft and cuddly. Very, very, very nice. So I didn't even have to knit this. Jennifer was very kind and said, "Oh, just keep it."
So amazing.
I was like, okay, we will. So we'll have this here in the shop. We can help you buy the pattern because it is a buy in store on Ravelry, and I think you can buy it yourself. Just look for the Pendenza shawl. If you search on Ravelry, and it will come right up, and you can buy it or you can get it here. And we've got plenty of the Matita in stock, and it goes so fast. It's on a size 7 or 8 needle, so you can get through it pretty quickly. You can easily up that. I think the original pattern was a little bit smaller, probably on a size 5 or 6 needle, but on the larger needle, it will knit very quickly, and you'll have it just in time for those cooler August nights that are coming. In the meantime, the other piece of business that she and I did was I just sold Plymouth yarn, the pattern for the top that I crocheted up there. They're going to buy that. And then I also did a beach cover-up. The other day I was walking down the street to the bank, and in the Eileen Fisher window, they had a very loose knit top. No shaping, just a pullover. And I was like, we can do that. And so I came back to the store and started crocheting with the Memphis cotton, which is another all cotton from Plymouth yarn. This one is one of those yarns that changes when you work with it. So it looks like one thing in the ball, but as soon as you knit or crochet, it completely changes the fabric. Again, this is a very drapey fabric, and this will look fantastic over a sleeveless white dress. I made it thinking about putting it over a bathing suit, which I'm gonna go get just to have on one of our mannequins, so we can put this on over. Yeah, look at that, just like that. Okay.
Ooh, I like it.
This is the first time I've seen it on a person. It's beautiful.
Ooh, okay, I'm making one of these.
Yeah.
Can you make it in multicolors?
You can make it in a multicolor. You can make it in stripes. This one is the crocheted version. I'm also going to write it in a knit version, so it'll be a couple rows of garter stitch and then a row of yarn over, knit 2 together. So it'll be open, light, and
perfect with
just
leggings.
Really nice.
Yeah.
Just 2 pieces sewn together. All right.
It's so like in the skein, it doesn't look like it would be this cozy, but
or
it's so,
soft
but it's
even.
so cozy.
Yeah, really nice. All right, so we're gonna have that exclusively here, and first, and then Plymouth Yarn will have it available on Ravelry under their label as well, but that will be later on. So if you like it, you'll be one of the first if you shop here. We also just got in one of the interchangeable needle sets from Likey, but this one is their indigo. Kate's going to open it for me. It's their indigo set. And don't worry, I am going to talk about the long tail cast on as soon as I'm done talking about everything else.
I'm trying not to rip it.
I know.
Talk about this.
Okay,
first.
yeah, I will. So if you saw our Instagram post right after last week's live, UPS came in with the new pop-up Dream in Color self-pooling color. And I wanted to show that to you because, man, this color is beautiful. Hey, Holly. And these skeins are so big, I can't even get them all on the camera. But look at that red. That is gorgeous, fading out to pink. And then against this turquoise color. Yes, Eileen, I did. This is a fingering weight yarn. Gail has already asked for us to put one aside. She has knit socks with this and just let the stripe, that red stripe, pop up, and they are beautiful. We have posted a picture of those as well. But the one mistake that I keep making is that we don't get just 10 of these. We actually get 12. So we have already sold 2 of them. So now we only have 10 of them left. But this yarn, it has cashmere in it. So it's really soft and just really, really special and delightful. And once it's gone, it's gone. I think we only have one skein of last month's colors left and 2 skeins of the first month's color left. So these are, I guess, I want to call it one of a kind, although it's not like one skein. It's a limited edition. That's what I'm thinking of. It is definitely a limited edition. So if you love it or you want to come in and look at it close up, come on in, because it will only be here for a short time. Now I can show you the needles because Kate took the wrapper off, but they come in this great like brush Swedish denim package, and when you open it up, the needles are all indigo blue. They're supposed to be like that. They didn't rub off on the fabric. The Lecky needles are fast becoming one of the favorite in the industry. They have a really good point on them, and they are super, super smooth. I wish you could feel them if we had feel-o-vision, because there is no catch in this joint at all. And when you screw in the cords, they're also really, really smooth. So these needles are polished to a really, really fine, smooth finish, and that tip is just pointy enough. And these kits go all the way down to a size 4, and they're the 5-inch length, so they're not great for making 16-inch circular needles, but they will do all of the longer lengths, the 24 and the 32-inch. So we've got a limited supply of that particular project or item in as well. And we are expecting more from that company, but their needles are becoming so popular that it's getting harder and harder to get them and keep them in stock. This is how the cords are blue too. I don't know if it's showing up in the packaging.
Like a dark blue.
And they're very, very flexible cords. These are the right kind of material in them, but they are indigo as well. And you get a good supply of the cords in there. There's quite a few. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4.
5.
There's 5 different lengths of cords. Sorry about the crackling. The crickle crackle. Okay, so we covered almost everything. I want you to remember that this week on Wednesday, Karin will be here from Periwinkle Sheep. She's coming here for the day. I'm not sure yet what time she's arriving, but she will definitely be here in the afternoon. She'll be setting up a trunk show of a lot of her yarn. We have always carried her fingering weight, the watercolors and the watercolors too. And we've carried some of her mohair called Wolke, W-O-L-K-E. And she has experimented with some different bases in the meantime over COVID. And we can't wait to see some of the new things that she's done. But she's going to bring a little sample of all of the yarns that she's doing. And we will have them here for a while. But on Wednesday, she will actually be in store and available for you to meet and greet, to ask questions, to really hear about how she goes about the whole dyeing process and what else she's thinking about doing. She has brought in some really fun, unique colors this time, and she will be up at the Cummington Sheep and Wool Festival, which is over Memorial Day weekend. If you don't get a chance to see her on Wednesday, you can see her in her booth up there. I think the show is Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, but you can check. We have a poster in the window. We are a sponsor, but I don't have the dates memorized in my head. But I'm really looking forward to having a visit with her. Karin is always so fun to have in the shop. Before COVID, when she was traveling, she would come in with buckets of yarn, and we would just go through and pick everything that we wanted. And this time it'll be a little bit different because she'll be setting it up semi-permanently. It'll be here for a while, so you'll have lots and lots of choices, more than what I might just order. And if you get in early enough, you'll have first dibs on whatever is here, and we'll get a chance to see what kind of colors you guys really like and are really expecting. She has built her business over a few years. She's originally from Germany. but she's been in the States for quite a long time. And she's relatively local. Her studio is in Albany, so it's not a little trip, but it's close enough so that she can get here and visit us for a day. So look for that on Wednesday. I wanted to make sure I reminded you all of that. So one of the fun things that we love about spring here in the shop is that when we have the door open, we can hear a lot of conversations or bits of conversations. And if you've ever been in the shop and experienced that, you know how funny some of those snippets can be. And on Friday, Kate and I were busy, but Kate heard a woman and her child walking by the store, and they stopped and looked in the shop and saw all the yarn. Of course, we had all the yarn out on the sidewalk, and Kate heard the mother say to the young boy, do you want me to knit you something? No, what do you want me to knit you? Yeah. What do you want me to knit you? And he looked up at her with big bright eyes and said, underwear.
And she laughed so hard.
And that just sent her into a fit of laughter. And all that made me think about was my dad talking about having wool underwear that had been knit by his grandmother. And back then they used to knit wool bathing suits as well, which must have been really difficult to keep on in the water. But we got a kick out of, that's the first thing that popped into his mind was he must have been, maybe his underwear was too tight. But we thought that was pretty funny. So on to the long-tailed cast-on. Last week, I talked about the difference between a knitted cast-on and a cable cast-on. And this week, I want to share with you some things about the long-tail cast-on. The long-tail cast-on is probably the most popular cast-on out there. It's the cast-on that we teach very first in our Learn to Knit in 3 Hour class because it is makes the strongest bottom edge, number one. It makes the most supple, stretchiest bottom edge. And it is the easiest, I think, to learn once you really get it. Once you learn it, you get the rhythm of it, and you are good to go. I use long-tail cast-on all the time. Almost every single sweater that I have knit, I have started with a long-tail cast-on. There are variations now of that particular technique, but I'm not going to get into those right now. The long-tail cast-on is called long-tail because the very first thing that you do is pull out a long tail. And this is probably the sticking point for almost everybody because how long of a tail do you pull out? I'm going to start just like this. You pull out a long tail, you make a slip knot at the fold, and you put that on your knitting needle. I'm going to put that one down. And then grab both strands of yarn, separate them, and begin the long tail process. Now, I have just pulled out a few inches. The other thing you want to remember about long tail is that the short end should be the one that goes over your thumb. And the ball end is the one that's over your finger. I'm just doing stitches until I pretty much use up most of that short end and it doesn't stay comfortably on my thumb. I've cast on 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I've cast on 12 stitches and this is a bigger needle. The problem everybody has is how much yarn do you pull out in order to have enough, number one, and not have a whole long tail left at the end. It seems to be a mystery. There's no real simple, like you'll know it like this answer, but I wanted to talk today about a couple of options for you. If you've ever taken a class with me, I've talked about how 1 arm's length from nose to arm, right here, is roughly 30 stitches. But that really depends on the needle size and the yarn size. That's weird. there's something happening in the camera. It looks like my needle has a bend in it.
Whoa.
It doesn't really, it's straight. Anyway, that 1 arm's length, nose to hand, is roughly 30 stitches. The larger the needle that you use, the thicker the yarn is usually, the fewer stitches you will get. The thinner the needle, the smaller the needle, the thinner the yarn, the more stitches you will get. And it's a rough estimate. So if you needed to cast on 90 stitches, my experience is that you don't really need to pull out 3 full arm lengths. You can generally do 2.5, and that will give you enough, and you should still end up with some kind of a tail. So that's been my general kind of rule. But you can get a little more precise than that. This is especially important if you have a real limited amount of yarn and you can't get any more. You want to be able to use as much as possible in the cast on without having a whole lot left over. So I said that I just did 12 stitches. This is what my tip is. Cast on, take the time to cast on 10, 12 stitches. Pull out that little length of yarn, 12 inches of yarn. Make the slip knot and see how many stitches you have cast on. You can then slide them off. Hold the last stitch that you cast on and pull it out. That's basically your slip knot. Hold on to the slip knot, pull that out too, and pinch it right there. This is how much yarn it took me to do 12 stitches. So now my pattern says to cast on 100. I would do 12 and then fold it again another 12. That's 24 and 36 and 48 and on like that, because I'm gonna lose track of the math in this. But basically now I've done it back and forth until I know I now have enough for 100 stitches. And I would make my slip knot right here. And again, the short end or the cut end or the end is the one that's going to go over my thumb and the ball end over my finger. And I should be able to cast on 100 stitches and still end up with just that short amount of yarn left. Now, the tension that you use to cast those stitches on also plays a part. If you're a very tight caster oner, just like you can be a very tight binder offer. I think I just made that up.
Yeah. That's usually
Doesn't
my
it sound
situation.
exactly right?
That's where I'm
Caster oner or binder offer. You'll want to take that into consideration. If you do find that your cast-ons are very tight, and you can tell that by when you go to put your sweater on and you're putting your hands in there to stretch it out, you can feel that tight edge. Or your hats come out and you can't get them to go completely around your head. You are a tight caster oner. And the simplest way to solve that is to right away use a needle 2 sizes larger than what the pattern calls for. As soon as you are done casting onto that larger needle, you would simply use your smaller needle to knit those stitches. And that's going to take care of giving you a nice amount of stretch in that cast on stitch. Now, there are a lot of stretchy cast-ons that are out there now on YouTube and on Instagram, and you can certainly use one of those as well, but they're all a little bit more involved than just a regular long tail cast-on. The other tip that I wanted to give you today was, what if you have to cast on like 250 stitches? And excuse me, I've got tissues in my pocket because it's definitely allergy time. But if you have a lot of stitches to cast on and you don't want to play that math game, if you have your yarn wound in a cake like this, you have access to the middle skein and to the middle of the skein where the yarn end is, and the outside of the skein as well. And what all you need to do is to find both of those ends. So one end is coming from the outside of the skein and one end is coming from the inside of the skein. and I'm just going to a simple knot that doesn't have to be tight. Put my needle between those strands of yarn and put my finger on the knot so that it stays there. And then hold on to both strands and start casting on with a regular long tail cast on. That knot does not count as a stitch. When I knit the first row, when I get to the end, I'll simply let that fall off. I can then keep track of, if I have 256 stitches to cast on, I do not want to be counting up to 256 all the time. So I would cast on maybe 50 stitches and put a marker on the needle. Cast on another 50 and put a marker on the needle. That way I can count my markers and know when I've reached 256. Then all I do is cut one end, and it doesn't matter. It just depends on where do you like to pull your yarn from. There are some people who really like to pull from the inside and some who swear by pulling from the outside. Cut the other end off and just go ahead and start knitting with the end that remains attached to the ball. It's that simple. If you're doing color work, you can use a strand of each color. Ooh. I didn't bring another color over here, but I would do the same thing. Take one strand, thank you. One strand from a...
It's attached.
That's all right, you can cut it. One strand from ball A and one strand from ball B. Knot them together. Now there are two tricks to this. So you can do whatever the first color that you're going to knit with on my finger and cast on so that all my stitches are blue and all the bottom edge is pink. Or if you're doing Fair Isle and you're doing a corrugated rib means that some stitches are one color and the other stitches are a second color. You can switch. So I can do a blue because that was on my finger and then trade and make it pink and then trade and make it blue. So I can go back and forth between these two colors, alternating the colors so that now I have one stitch in pink, one in blue, one in pink, one in blue, so that my ribbing, my corrugated ribbing is already set up, or whatever else you're going to do. So some fun kind of things that you can play with. And let me hold it this way so you can see the pretty side of that cast on as well. Just remember that the stitch that goes on the needle is coming from the yarn that's on your finger. Experiment with it. See what happens when you try it, just with some scrap yarn, and see what fun you can have or how you can even make your bottom edge. This might actually convince some of you to try a little color work, even just in ribbing. So the yarn that's on my finger is the color that's on the needle. So, Barb, yeah, Woe is right. Row is right. So we're going to use this method. I'm planning the fall workshops kind of now. We're taking a little bit of a break over the summer. There's a lot of activity, a lot of people on vacation. I'm traveling in both June and July, and I just sort of feel like I don't have enough time to actually plan some classes. But we're going to do a couple of things with color work in the fall that we will use this technique for. So the next time you need to cast on, think about using a larger needle if you need it to be looser, and not necessarily, Catherine, it's not way ahead of you. It's a fairly simple technique. Anyway, a larger needle to cast on, and the same thing goes for binding off, which we'll talk about this summer as well. But a larger needle to bind off will ensure that all of your necks stretch out and go over the heads fairly easily, and that all of your cast on edges maintain stability while still being supple enough and stretchy enough to get on over your head. So I hope that as many of you as possible can come and meet Karen on Wednesday. And yes, I have Scotch tape in my hair because it's keeping it out of my eyes. I'm going for a haircut later on this afternoon, so I will be better off. And It's going to be a gorgeous week out there. Hopefully all your gardens are in and you can go out on the deck, and now you can start a brand new project because you now know how to cast on 3 different ways. And please go knit something. Bye, everybody.